Hello everyone. Today's story is Saru and Her Little Secret. Author Sunita Lad Bhamre, illustrator Divya George, publisher Pratham Books. A level 4 story. Now let's get started. At the far edge of the forest near a large muddy pond is a wooden fence. Inside the fence stands a big brick building surrounded by small cottages and sheds. A large number of people live here and do a lot of good work. The big building has a student hostel, a school, and a hospital. In the hostel lives a little girl called Saru. Saru is playful and ready to run, skip, and jump ever so often. So she is very playful in nature. A boy called Mangu lives at the hostel too. Mangu is Saru's best friend, but unlike her, he is timid and does not run about as much. Saru has 3 more friends who live in the cottages nearby. They are Hari, Manik and Ketki. Hari's father works as a driver. Manik's parents work at the hospital and Ketki's mother is a teacher at the school. Then there is Mai. She is the caretaker of the children. So these are all the details of all the people who live around Saru, and they are her friends. Mai has eyebrows which are already crossed over each other, and she has a booming voice whenever she calls out to Saru. If you were to pass by the hostel, you would be sure to hear Mai calling out to Saru at any time of the day. This is because Saru was never where she was meant to be. She was always away in the woods or near the pond. Now that we know all about the people in the story, let us begin not at the very beginning, but on a bright sunny morning in the month of May, which is running now. So are you ready, children, to listen to this beautiful story of Saru and her friends? Okay, let's begin with the story. Saru pulled down the yellow sheet from her eyes as she heard the sound of the pots and pans in the kitchen. She jumped out from her bed. Soon, Saru ate her rice gruel and got ready for the day. It was a school holiday. The day was definitely going to be a very good one, Saru knew. Whenever there was no school, Saru was sure to have plenty of fun. Like all of us, all the other children love not going to school and enjoy their holidays and have plenty of fun on the day which is a holiday. She called out to Mangu, but Mangu was not in the mood to go to the pond with her. Mangu liked school and would have liked to be there instead of running off with Saru. Saru decided to ask her other friends to join her, but all of them seemed to have something to do that morning, and Saru was left to herself. Not being too upset about it, she raced towards the fence of the building and slipped out from an opening between the wooden planks. She knew she shouldn't be doing that, but Saru was too excited and didn't stop to think. Off she went down the hill, toed over pebbles on the slush and the puddles, and then ran further downhill to the pond by the large peepal tree. There were times when a passerby would sit under the shady tree or take a nap, but there was no one around this morning. Saru was glad she was alone. She knew that if anyone from the hostel saw her, she would have to answer a dozen questions, and she was sure that there would be a good scolding in store for her. Saru's favorite pastime by the pond was to catch dragonflies. The long-winged insects looked just like helicopters that she had seen in pictures before. and catching them by their delicate wings was just the right kind of fun she was looking for. So have you ever tried this one? One down, two down, and many more down. Saru would carefully hold her fingers towards the dragonfly as it hovered over the reeds and snap her fingers at great speed to catch the buzzing insect. Then she would sit it down on the sticky leaves of the bushes nearby. The dragonfly would be stuck to the leaf for a few minutes and then fly away. While Saru was busy snapping up the dragonflies, she heard a scratching sound in the bushes nearby. In a moment, the sound grew louder and Saru could see the bushes moving. Now who could this be? Since she was alone, she must be feeling scared or something. Let's read. A curious girl by nature, Saru peered through the bushes to see what the sound was about. As she moved the branches out of the way, Saru came face to face with a tiny creature with the biggest eyes and the funniest shape ever. It looked like a little baby deer with the body of a large mouse. The little animal was startled to see Saru and tried to scamper away, but couldn't do so. Its leg seemed to be caught in something below. As Saru stared at it in amazement, she could see the poor animal frightened and trying hard to get free and escape. The more it tried to do so, the more it seemed to be trapped. It pulled and pulled till it could do no more and sank down into the bushes. She pushed the bushes away some more and looked below at the tired animal lying in a heap. The little strange animal had caught its hind leg trapped in a long vine from the tree above. Saru carefully unwound the vine from its legs and freed it. But the poor deer was wounded and didn't move. Feeling sorry for the animal, she decided to carry it home and nurse it back to health. As Saru walked back to the building with the mouse-like animal in her arms, she spotted Mai standing in the veranda, looking out for her. Sensing trouble, Saru made a dash for the tractor shed nearby. She knew that one look at the little animal in her hands and Mai would tell her to leave it in the woods. Mai didn't like anything little, people or animals. After Mai had grown tired of calling to Saru and had returned inside, Saru gingerly stepped around the building and carried the frightened creature inside the shed adjoining it. This shed housed the large pots, pans, ladles, and vessels that were needed for cooking large and special meals on festive days. Saru looked around the dark room and decided that she would keep the little animal there and nurse it back to health. Though Saru was barely a few years old herself, she knew that the animal wouldn't survive outside as it probably had a broken leg. After a hasty glance around the room, she made up her mind and placed the animal in a large pot, which was the largest vessel there and was used only on special occasions. She spread a jute bag at the bottom and laid the animal very carefully on it. First, Saru made a quick trip to her friends, giving them the delightful news. Then she ran to get some milk from the kitchen. Within minutes, they were all peering at the quaint little animal. Hari was the oldest of the lot, and as soon as he saw the animal, he proclaimed that it was a baby deer. Ketki, who loved to read and was the most poetic, decided that they should call it Pillu. Since Mangu was the gentlest in the group, He was chosen to feed milk to Pillu. Pillu was a little hesitant at first, but as he was hungry, he soon drank the milk that Mangu offered in spoonfuls. They decided that Pillu should be kept in the shed as no one went there much. Mangu agreed to feed it, and the others promised to bring it some food whenever they could. Pillu looked a great deal sturdier later in the evening. He had been fed another round of milk after he had nibbled at the bhakri that Manik had sneaked in. As night fell, the friends tucked Pillu under the folds of a jute bag and headed to their beds. The children spent a restless night while Pillu slept peacefully in his new home. Before long, it was morning and the excited children went straight to the shed. Pillu was sitting up, his head bobbing over the rim of the large pot. The children sat down for some important discussions. They whispered to each other. They argued. Mai had glared at them when she had passed by and wondered what they were up to. Seeing nothing amiss, she had continued on her way. As the children stroked the soft fur on Pillu's tiny body and cuddled him, he seemed warm and calm. They wanted to keep him forever. However, they knew that once he grew up into a large deer, they wouldn't be able to hide him in the small room. Every time they heard footsteps close by, they would hide Pillu in the pot. None of them wanted to leave Pillu's side. Pillu was their little secret. The next day was the same. In the morning, they rushed to the shed before school. They had each managed to get some food for Pillu. They fed him with care and headed for school. No sooner was school over than they hurried back to the shed to be with Pillu. Pillu had been good and had managed to stay in his pot and out of trouble. They spent the evening playing with Pillu, who was strong enough to stand up now. His legs seemed to be healing well. Days passed by and each day Pillu grew fatter and healthier. Soon Pillu grew friskier too. He seemed to want to be out of his pot more and the children began to panic. They were certain that if someone spotted Pillu, that would be the end of their secret. They were also worried about Pillu's strange growth. They wondered why Pillu continued to look like a large mouse and hadn't grown into a deer as yet. It was probably because they had kept him for so long in the pot. They fretted sadly. A few days later, there was chaos. It was late in the night and everybody was asleep when suddenly there was a loud clanking sound. The sound rang out from Pillu's shed and it woke up all the people. Everyone ran towards the shed. And there he was. Little Pillu stood in the center of the shed looking around with his large loopy eyes. He had probably tried to get out of the pot and had overturned a lot of other pots and pans. The room looked a real mess. They were shocked to see Pillu. Everyone seemed to be talking at once. All through the commotion, little Pillu stood looking as sweet as ever. Soon a gentleman with a kind voice came forward. He calmed the people down by asking them not to be afraid as the animal was harmless and had probably strayed in from the wild. Still, it was Mai who seemed to have all the answers. She raved and ranted. She said she knew the mess had been caused by Saru and her friends, who were up to mischief all the time. The person with the gentle voice picked up little Pillu and beckoned to Saru and her friends. He was smiling and asked the children if they had taken care of Pillu. So this means that this was not a secret for this gentleman who was happy. Confronted by his gentleness, the children told him how they had found Pillu and how they had taken care of him. They also said they were worried about how tiny their little dear was. Could it be because they had kept him in the pod? They asked. He laughed gently when he heard this. The kind man told the children that the little animal that they had looked after so well was actually a mouse deer and not a deer. The children were most surprised to learn that their Pillu was in fact not a baby deer and was always going to look as he did. A bit like a mouse, a bit like a pig, a bit like a deer. So because it was a mouse deer, not a normal deer. The elders decided to let the children keep Pillu at the hostel. The kind man announced that an animal shelter would be built there. There were squeals of delight from the happy children. A month later, an animal shelter was built for sick and needy animals from the forest. Little Pillu began to live there forever. If you go up to the hostel one day, you just may see Pillu playing with Saru and her friends. And that's a great news for her friends and Saru, as they were allowed to keep the little animal. This story is inspired by the work of Dr. Prakash Amte, son of the late social worker Baba Amte. Started by Baba Amte, the Lok Biradari Prakalp works for the welfare and development of Madhya Gond tribals in the remote regions of central India. The organization runs a free hospital, a school and an animal shelter called Amte's Animal Ark, an orphanage cum rescue center at Hemalkasa. Visitors are welcomed at the shelter. To learn more about Lok Biradari Prakalp, do visit the link given below. I hope you liked this story, children, and that was a lot of fun to read. Thank you.